The distress beacon had been screaming across the void for 3 days before anyone bothered to listen. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his calloused hands gripping the edge of the tactical display as the translated message played for the fourth time. The alien voice, belonging to a species called the Quarin, crackled with static and desperation, each word punctuated by the sounds of explosions in the background. To any civilization receiving this transmission, the voice pleaded, feminine and breaking with emotion, "We are the Quarin of Thessara Prime. Our world burns. The Krell Dominion has come with fire and death. We are scholars, artists, seekers of knowledge, not warriors. We have no defense against their cruelty. If there is compassion left in this universe, if there is justice, please, someone help us." Webb's jaw tightened as the message looped back to the beginning. Around him, the bridge crew of the Terran Navy destroyer maintained their posts with practiced discipline, but he could feel their tension. Every set of eyes eventually drifted toward him, waiting for his decision. Lieutenant Sarah Kowalski, his tactical officer, broke the silence first. She pushed back from her console, her blonde hair tied in a regulation bun that had started to come loose during the long watch. "Sir, Thessara Prime is 48 light-years outside our patrol zone," she said carefully. "Command hasn't issued any orders regarding this distress call." Webb nodded slowly, his dark eyes never leaving the holographic display showing Thessara's location. A blue dot pulsing in distress against the star chart's black canvas. "Any response from the Galactic Concord?" he asked. Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez, the communications officer, shook his head. His fingers danced across his console, pulling up diplomatic channels. "Negative, Captain. The Concord received the signal same as us, but they've issued no mobilization orders. From what I'm picking up on the diplomatic frequencies," he paused, his expression darkening, "they're debating jurisdiction and potential violations of the non-interference protocols." "Debating," Webb repeated, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. "While people die." Dr. Rachel Foster, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up from her station. She'd been analyzing what little data they had on the Quarin, a peaceful species known throughout this sector for their philosophical texts and stunning crystalline architecture. "Captain, according to our records, the Quarin have no military infrastructure whatsoever," she said quietly. "Their entire civilization is built around the pursuit of knowledge and artistic expression. They wouldn't last a week against a species like the Krell." The Krell Dominion. Humanity had heard whispers about them during their brief 30 years as members of the Galactic Concord, a militaristic empire of insectoid raiders that swept through systems like locusts, enslaving populations and strip-mining worlds. The older races spoke of them with fear, but none had ever successfully challenged their expansion. Webb straightened, his decision crystallizing in his mind like ice forming on a winter pond. He joined the Terran Navy 20 years ago, fresh out of the academy, with idealistic dreams of exploration and first contact. He'd seen humanity's slow, cautious integration into galactic society. Always the newcomers, always the ones told to wait their turn, always reminded that they were the youngest species at the table. But he'd also grown up on the stories of Earth's own history. He knew what happened when good people stood by and did nothing. "Helm," he said, his voice cutting through the bridge's tension like a blade, "plot a course for Thessara Prime. Maximum speed." The helmsman, Ensign David Park, spun in his chair, eyes wide. "Sir, without orders from command." "You heard me, Ensign." Kowalski stood, concern etched across her features. She moved closer, lowering her voice so only Webb could hear. "Captain, this could end your career. The Concord has rules about military intervention in sovereign space. Earth Command will have to disavow us to maintain diplomatic relations." Webb met her gaze steadily. He'd served with Sarah Kowalski for 6 years, trusted her judgment more than almost anyone else on his crew. But some decisions transcended career concerns. "Lieutenant, when you put on this uniform, what oath did you take?" he asked. She blinked, caught off guard by the question. "To defend humanity's interests and uphold the principles of human dignity and freedom." "Not just human dignity, Sarah. The oath says the dignity of all sentient beings. Those words mean something to me." He raised his voice so the entire bridge could hear. "They mean something to every person on this ship. The Concord can debate protocols while an entire civilization burns, but I won't. If that costs me my career, so be it." A moment of profound silence followed. Then Park's hands flew across his console. "Course plotted, Captain. Ready to jump to hyperspace on your order." Rodriguez grinned from his station. "And if we're going to violate a few dozen regulations, sir, might as well go all in. I'm broadcasting a message to any Terran vessels in range, calling for volunteers." Webb felt something warm expand in his chest, pride in his crew, in their shared humanity, in the simple, stubborn refusal to look away from injustice. "Make the jump," he ordered, "and somebody wake up the Marines. They're going to want in on this." The Resolute shuddered as its hyperdrive engaged, folding space around the destroyer's hull. Stars stretched into lines of light as the ship hurtled toward a world it had never visited, to save people it had never met, because it was the right thing to do. 26 hours later, the Resolute dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Thessara system, and Marcus Webb felt his blood run cold. The tactical display painted a picture of systematic annihilation. 12 Krell warships, massive, angular vessels bristling with weapons, orbited Thessara Prime like vultures circling prey. Debris fields marked where the Quarren's defensive satellites had once stood. On the planet's surface, cities that had stood for millennia were burning, their crystalline structures reduced to molten ruins. "Jesus," Kowalski breathed beside him. "Life signs," Webb asked, forcing himself to focus. Foster worked her console frantically, detecting Quarren populations scattered across the southern continent. They're clustered in what looked like underground shelters, but Captain, her voice caught. The Krell are deploying ground forces. They're hunting survivors. Webb's hands clenched into fists. The Krell weren't just conquering Thessara, they were exterminating it. "Incoming transmission," Rodriguez announced. "It's from the lead Krell warship, audio only." "Put it through." A voice emerged from the speakers, harsh, clicking, utterly alien. The ship's AI translated it into flat, emotionless English. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Krell territorial acquisition zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This world belongs to the Dominion now." Webb stepped forward, his voice steady and cold. "This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran Navy destroyer Resolute. That world belongs to the Quarren, and you're going to leave it." Now, a sound that might have been laughter crackled through the transmission. "Terrans, we know of you, the newest children admitted to the Concord's table. You have no authority here, no power to enforce your demands. You are one ship, we are 12. Leave now, little humans, or we will add your wreckage to the debris field." The transmission cut off. Kowalski pulled up tactical assessments, her face grim. "Captain, their assessment is accurate. Each of those warships outguns us. Even with the Resolute's advanced weapon systems, the odds are—" "I know the odds, Lieutenant." "Then, sir, respectfully, we need to call for reinforcements. Fall back and wait for Earth Command to send a battle group." Webb shook his head slowly, his eyes fixed on the planet below, on the pinpoints of light that represented millions of Quarrens hanging by a thread. "Those people don't have time for Earth Command to debate and plan. They don't have time for reinforcements." He turned to face his bridge crew. "But maybe we don't need to win the fight. Maybe we just need to buy time." Rodriguez looked up, understanding dawning in his eyes. "The volunteers, how many ships responded to your call? Check and see." Rodriguez's fingers flew across his console. After a moment, his eyes widened. "Captain, you need to see this." Webb moved to the communications station. The display showed IFF signals, identification friend or foe transponders emerging from hyperspace. One by one, ships dropped into normal space around the Resolute. The light cruiser Defiance, the destroyers Vengeful and Undaunted, 3 frigates, Courage, Relentless, and Pioneer, 2 support vessels and a carrier, the Indomitable, her launch bays already opening to disgorge squadrons of strike fighters. "My God," Foster whispered. "Where did they all come from?" Rodriguez was laughing now, a sound of pure joy. "Every Terran ship within 3 jumps heard your call, Captain. They all came." Webb felt his throat tighten with emotion. 12 Terran warships against 12 Krell vessels. Now the odds were even. But more than that, every captain out there had made the same choice he had, risking everything to answer a cry for help from strangers. "Open a fleet-wide channel," he ordered. "Channel open, sir. This is Captain Webb to all Terran vessels. Thank you for coming. What we're about to do violates Concord law, Earth Command regulations, and probably common sense. The Krell Dominion will fight with everything they have. Some of us might not make it home." He paused, letting that truth settle. "But there are millions of people down on that planet who will die if we don't act. History will judge us not by the rules we followed, but by the lives we saved. All ships, battle stations. We're going to show the Krell what happens when they pick on someone who can't fight back. We're going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for." A chorus of acknowledgements flooded the channel, battle-ready voices from 12 ships full of men and women who had chosen compassion over caution, action over apathy. "Krell warships are moving to intercept," Kowalski reported. "They're forming up for a direct assault." Webb settled into his command chair, his voice calm and certain. "All ships, weapons free. Let's get to work." The Terran fleet moved as one, smaller vessels spreading into a combat formation that would have made naval tacticians from Earth's ocean-going days proud. The Resolute led the charge, her railguns spinning up to firing speed as missile tubes loaded their deadly cargo. The Krell warships advanced ponderously, confident in their size and firepower. They'd spent decades terrorizing smaller civilizations, facing no real opposition. They expected the Terrans to break, to flee like so many others had before. They were wrong. The first salvo from the Terran fleet lit up space like a newborn star. Kinetic rounds traveling at a fraction of light speed slammed into Krell shields, while guided missiles weaved through point defense fire to detonate against armored hulls. The Krell returned fire, their plasma weapons scorching across space. But the Terran ships danced between the shots with the agility of vessels designed by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of naval warfare. Webb watched the tactical display with the focus of a chess master, calling out orders as the battle evolved. The Resolute took a glancing hit that shook the ship and killed the lights for 3 seconds before backup generators kicked in. Around them, other Terran vessels exchanged fire with the Krell in a deadly ballet. Direct hit on Krell Vessel 3, Kowalski shouted over the noise. Her shields are down. Defiance, vengeful, concentrate fire on that target, Webb ordered. Take her out of the fight. The two destroyers pivoted with precision, their combined firepower overwhelming the damaged Krell warship. Explosions rippled across its hull before it went dark, drifting lifelessly in space. But the Krell were learning. They adapted their tactics, focusing fire on individual Terran ships to divide the fleet's attention. The frigate Courage took critical damage, her captain ordering evacuation as the ship's reactor went critical. The Pioneer moved in to cover the escape pods, taking hits meant for her sister ship. "We're losing ships," Rodriguez warned. "I know." Webb's knuckles were white on his armrest. "But we're winning. Foster, what's the situation on the ground?" The xenobiologist had been coordinating with the planet's surface throughout the battle. "Captain, the Quarren have organized their own resistance. They're using our attack as cover to strike at Krell ground forces, but there are still raiding parties hunting civilian shelters." An idea crystallized in Webb's mind, dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it might just work. He opened a channel to the carrier Indomitable. "Captain Hernandez, I need your Marines. We're going down there." A woman's voice, tough as nails and twice as sharp, responded immediately. "Say the word, Webb. My people are ready to drop. Load up assault shuttles. We're going to make this personal for the Krell." Kowalski turned to him, eyes wide. "Sir, you can't leave the ship during a space battle. Rodriguez has tactical command. You have the bridge, Lieutenant." He stood, his decision made. "I'm not asking anyone to take risks I won't take myself. Besides, those people down there answered our call for help by fighting back. Least I can do is fight alongside them." The assault shuttle bucked and weaved through atmospheric fire as it descended toward Thessara Prime. Webb sat in the crash harness next to 24 Marines in full combat armor, their faces hidden behind tactical helmets, but their determination palpable. Through the viewport, he could see other shuttles forming up around them, a wave of Terran military force about to crash into the Krell ground forces. Sergeant First Class Amanda Santos, the squad leader, checked her rifle one last time before speaking to Webb over the platoon channel. "Captain, with respect, you should have stayed on the ship. We've trained for this. You're a naval officer." Webb checked his own sidearm, a heavy plasma pistol that felt foreign in his hand compared to a ship's controls. "Sergeant, I've got about 100 hours of small arms training from the academy. I'll try not to shoot any Marines in the back." Someone in the squad chuckled. Santos shook her head but didn't argue further. The shuttle's AI announced their approach. "Landing zone in 30 seconds. Heavy Krell presence detected. This will be a hot insertion." The moment the shuttle's ramp dropped, the world exploded into chaos. Krell warriors, hulking insectoid creatures with multiple limbs and chitinous armor, fired plasma weapons at the incoming Marines. But the Terrans had faced worse in Earth's own wars. They moved with brutal efficiency, their training and superior tactics cutting through the Krell positions like a knife through silk. Webb stayed close to Santos's squad as they pushed toward the nearest Quarren shelter, a crystalline structure half buried in rubble, its entrance guarded by desperate civilians armed with improvised weapons. When the Quarren saw the Terran Marines, their complex facial features showed unmistakable relief. One Quarren stepped forward, her crystalline skin catching the firelight. She spoke in musical tones that Webb's translator earpiece rendered into English. "You came." The voice on the transmission said humans were coming, but we couldn't believe why you would risk yourselves for us. Webb met her multifaceted eyes. Because it's the right thing to do. Now let's get your people to safety. The next hours blurred into a nightmare of combat and evacuation. The Marines fought building to building, shelter to shelter, extracting Quarren civilians while fending off increasingly desperate Krell attacks. Above them, the space battle raged on, visible as streaks of light across the smoke-filled sky. Webb found himself fighting alongside Quarren resistance fighters, civilians who had taken up arms to defend their world. They weren't trained soldiers, but they fought with the ferocity of those protecting their homes and families. One moment stood out with crystal clarity. A young Quarren male, barely more than an adolescent by their species standards, standing over a fallen Marine and firing a captured Krell weapon at attacking warriors. Webb helped him hold the line until reinforcements arrived. As the sun set on Thessara Prime, casting long shadows across a scarred but unbroken world, the tide finally turned. In orbit, the last Krell warship limped away from the battle, its fleet reduced to wreckage. On the ground, Krell forces surrendered or retreated to their transports, harried every step of the way by combined Terran-Quarren forces. Webb stood in the ruins of what had once been a magnificent plaza, surrounded by exhausted Marines and grateful Quarren. His uniform was torn and stained, his face streaked with soot, but he'd never felt more proud. Santos approached, removing her helmet to reveal a weary but satisfied smile. Captain, we've secured all civilian shelters in this sector. Casualties are lower than expected. The Quarren fought like demons once they saw we weren't abandoning them. A Quarren elder, his crystalline features marked with age and wisdom, approached Webb with slow, deliberate steps. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. Captain Webb of Earth, you and your people have given us a gift beyond measure. We called into the darkness, and you answered. The galaxy will remember this day. Webb felt the words settle over him like a mantle. He thought of Admiral Vance from the old stories, of all the humans throughout history who had answered the call when others suffered. Elder, we did what anyone should do, what we hope others would do for us if our positions were reversed. The Quarren Elder's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile. That, Captain, is what makes humanity extraordinary. Not your weapons or your ships, but your hearts. 6 months later, Marcus Webb stood in the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Concord, no longer a captain, but a civilian. True to Kowalski's prediction, Earth Command had disavowed his actions to maintain diplomatic relations. He'd been court-martialed, stripped of rank, and discharged. Every captain who had answered his call had faced similar consequences. But as he looked around the vast chamber filled with representatives from hundreds of species, Webb realized something profound had changed. The Quarren delegation sat in places of honor, their civilization saved and rebuilding. Other species, small powers who had lived in fear of the Krell dominion, now looked to humanity with new eyes. The Concord's High Chancellor, an ancient being of pure energy, addressed the assembly. The actions of the Terran vessels at Thessara Prime violated numerous protocols and regulations, yet they also exposed a fundamental failure in our own principles. We debated jurisdiction while innocents died. We hid behind procedure while genocide unfolded. The Chancellor turned toward Webb. Human, you and your people have reminded the galaxy of something we had forgotten, that true civilization is measured not by age or technology, but by the courage to act when action is needed. The Concord hereby recognizes humanity's intervention at Thessara Prime as righteous and necessary. Furthermore, we establish new protocols. No member species shall stand idle while sapient beings face extinction. The assembly erupted in a mixture of applause and chittering and other alien expressions of approval. Webb felt tears sting his eyes. Later, in a private garden within the Concord complex, Webb found himself walking with the Quarren elder from Thessara. They moved in comfortable silence until the elder spoke. Captain, forgive me. I know you no longer hold that rank. What you did has sparked changes throughout the galaxy. 6 species have signed mutual defense pacts in the past month alone. The Krell Dominion has retreated to their home systems, fearful of unified opposition. You've reshaped the political landscape of known space. Webb shook his head. I just answered a distress call. Any decent person would have done the same. But they didn't. You did. The elder stopped, his ancient eyes reflecting starlight. There's a saying among my people. The brightest stars are those who choose to shine when darkness threatens to consume all. You and your fellow humans chose to be that light. They stood together in the garden as night fell, watching the stars emerge one by one. Somewhere out there, the Resolute's replacement was patrolling Terran space under new captain. Somewhere, Sarah Kowalski was training the next generation of officers who would carry forward the lesson of Thessara Prime. Somewhere, young people of a dozen species were joining defense forces, inspired by the humans who had risked everything for strangers. Webb thought about the oath he'd taken all those years ago, about the decision that had cost him his career but saved a world. He thought about the simple truth that had guided him through that crucial moment. When someone calls for help, you answer. As he stood beneath alien stars with a grateful friend at his side, Marcus Webb understood that humanity's greatest export to the galaxy wasn't technology or weapons or art. It was something simpler and more powerful. The unwavering belief that every life has value, that compassion transcends species, and that the measure of a civilization is found in who they choose to defend. The stars shone down on a galaxy forever changed, where an old truth had been rediscovered through human stubbornness. A single voice raised against injustice can echo across the cosmos, but only if someone chooses to listen, and in listening, chooses to act. For when the stars went silent, humanity remembered how to make them sing again, not with conquest or domination, but with the simple, revolutionary act of giving a damn.